Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. I wanted to come on and talk about very briefly on what was going on with our cases. I know I got a lot of questions from everybody. I cannot answer all the questions, but I am going to try my best to make sense of it. This was one of the reasons why we had did public statements to try to clarify some things that seemed confusing. Now, remember, everybody, if something has been going on for X number of years, and in our case, 14 years, then there is some things there that may not always connect. There were two separate cases, if you didn't know, with the family court case. The family court case, as you know, was a FD docket. It was a real FD docket. And it was the only FD docket that we had that was a family court case. That actually got branched off to a civil law case, but that didn't go anywhere because the family law didn't go anywhere. And we already talked about the fact that there are victims, right? Real live victims. I'm a victim. I'm going to be a victor in the situations, but I am a victim of what has happened because there were some things that happened in the system that were unlawful, which is why we're pursuing to get these things justified because damages came, which we believe was obstruction of justice, which we believe led into attorney fees loss and all these other things. So there were things that actually happened that were not in our head beyond paternity. Let me say it again, beyond paternity. So our biggest thing is always never forget the victim, everybody, the victims. And there were several, myself, my godson, and my goddaughter. My goddaughter, Wanda Satterway, was the first victim. And I believe to some degree, some of the things that happened to us was to cover that up. Now you see with your own eyes what is going on in the media. You see there's things happening with a lot of underage contact with people, having sex. And some people, that's just who they are. And they were doing it before they became famous, quite frankly. So at the end of the day, please don't forget who the victims are. So some of the questions that came was they asked me about the jurisdictions. How can somebody turn jurisdiction on and off? Well, they can't. You cannot turn jurisdiction on and off in any form, in any court, anywhere. Supreme Court of this country made it very clear that if a court does not have jurisdiction, it doesn't have power, period. So therefore, if the complaint, in other words, when you file a whatever you're filing, and in this, in most cases, it's going to be a complaint, right? You're going to have a complaint. You usually can file a motion with it to ask the court to do something. A complaint is one thing, dealing with the circumstances and situations. Usually, is not going through great lengths of the details or the exhibits, I should say. And then people sometimes file a motion. In other words, you cannot file a motion without a complaint. So a motion comes as a result of some underlying case somewhere. In our case, the case was our family court case. And in 2012, everything was declared fraud. Not fraud, it was fraud though. It was declared in the very beginning as no jurisdiction. The fraud part, to be honest, was the personal jurisdiction, because we'll talk about that later. But for the most part, that was it. So, in order for you to ask for anything in that FD case, you had to have a motion, but you also had to have a complaint. And in this case, the complaint was already dead on arrival. So, the underlying matter of the FD docket case for us was no jurisdiction, no subject or personal jurisdiction. Now, that was what we had sought to prove with what we were going through with these attorney fees and anti-SLAPP, because that's all you needed. They had one thing that threw this whole case out for California, or threw it in the loops, if you will. And then each time when you go through this, you have time to resolve it to see if there's something that was missing. And that's what we did. So at the end of the day, not to go through all the details of that, I know you can't look up everything, and I know that's kind of hard for people to do. But for the most part, jurisdiction cannot be turned on and off. It's either on or it's off. It's no such thing as being a little pregnant. So that's the first thing. And then somebody also said they were saying you're using your property. Yeah. All those fraudulent acts did lead to and void orders, that orders were didn't have no power, but they were done for people, I believe, to capitalize and obtain money. if an attorney knows that there's no jurisdiction, there's no reason for them to bring something unless they're trying to cure the jurisdiction. And in our case, they did not. We were trying to cure it when we became aware that someone had misrepresented their property holdings, and one thing led to the next. Nonetheless, not to get into all the merits because it doesn't even matter. Those things do not matter. What matters is the bottom line. And because the bottom line of the complaint was, fraud from the beginning, which I always said, then therefore everything afterwards, unless you cure that first and then ask the court for something, the curing of the jurisdiction remains unresolved. So that unresolved information, or these so-called fraudulent things that took place, led to liens. Now, all the stuff in between didn't have merit. There was no adjudication. This was, we kept telling everybody, no due process. They just were doing stuff because they could get away with it. Nonetheless, here we are. We were looking for, right off the bat, for the damages that took place from the 2012 that led to all the other things, because the persons kept on saying the same things from 2012 to 2025. They were what we call continuous violations. So nonetheless, and again, no curing of the problem, which was jurisdiction. In fact, the defendant came in court from 2012 to 2025 saying they had no jurisdiction with the state of New Jersey, and that the court could not do anything with them. In other words, they were contesting against the jurisdiction. So you can't contest against something and then want that same jurisdiction to give you something. But because these persons, we believe now, with all this mess that I just mentioned, was connected or somehow influenced by the Attorney General of New Jersey, it appears that something somewhere there made them feel comfortable enough to egregiously ask the court to do something, and the court did it in New Jersey, the state court, and things happened when they shouldn't have happened that were unlawful. So yeah, we will be getting that to be reviewed when the new party comes in, because we have not new party, but new group, the new elected officials. We do have a case in the Third Circuit. The Third Circuit was dealing with the judges. And then in California, we was dealing with the client, because we believe that all three, including the attorneys, played a role in the problem. So there was attorneys, client, and judges. So I don't want to go through all of those things. It is a very interesting situation, because you want accountability. You want someone to be accountable for what took place. And that's where we are. So the main three questions I got was being a victim. And yes, I did get my car, as you already saw. Someone did that recently in the month of December. They on one street, and the car is driven by a younger family member with a small child. See the car seat right there. The person did come and break the window, the passenger window in the front, took a little bit of money out, did things, but the glass was all over the place. We got that fixed just 3 days later. And then on that fourth or fifth day in that same week, the car was located in another location, and the person returned. They entered the car with no key. So that was an indication to me, and this is the way I see it, it's a professional type of theft, professional entry. Nonetheless, I ain't gonna worry about it now. I'm gonna talk to God about it. But we also talk to authorities too. But I just want y'all to know that did happen. That's not a fabrication. And we've had other incidences. I've had incidences in my home in New Jersey, the same home that we're dealing with the bankruptcy case. Incidents there. Ramir has incidents with his car. I'm not going to go through all the things now, but I will go through them later to let people see and know and see what we've been through. So this is not a fairy tale. This has been our lives. and we were looking for justice. Can you imagine that? And we ran into some circumstances. Now, I'm saying all that to say, and I'm going to do another video, that a lot of this was probably motivated by Wanda's age. Oh, yeah. Wanda was underage, and the allegations are as such that obviously it was not something that was lawful. And as a result, the judges took upon themselves to shield someone, hide, whatever you want to call it. And it turned out messy, right? That's why we're here all these years later. And it all collides with the Diddy cases. And now you have L.A. Reid. You have the Justin Bieber stuff coming. You got Will Smith. There's a lot of the same groups of people doing similar things to women and men. And we'll talk about that on the next video. But anywho, those are the three main questions. We were considered victims. We're going to be victors, but we're definitely victims. So don't forget about the victims, y'all. And we already said about the jurisdiction. How can somebody turn jurisdiction on and off? They can't. It's either on or off, period. In this case, it's off. And nobody has sent any orders or did anything as such. Anything that the Attorney General has said of New Jersey about the court having jurisdiction under my cases is incorrect. And it's very irresponsible for him to say something like that in writing, knowing what he knows. But it makes sense on why some of the people under him and people that he knows may have been doing what they're doing because they were very confident about it, very willing to do it, and knowing it's wrong, they were willing to do it. So we have to worry about and concern ourselves with our democracy and the people who died for our country and made this place a better place. I don't like to make long videos. I know I don't. So I'm going to end soon. And then regarding the property piece, as we said, all came from fraudulent activity. When there's fraud in the beginning, the complaint was determined by the judge to have not had no jurisdiction. A motion don't override a complaint. It comes from the complaint. And in this case here, unless you're going to cure the jurisdiction, you don't have anything else to talk about. So there was things that we tried to cure the jurisdiction on, and it didn't work out because the judges didn't want to do it. They wouldn't look at their own deeds or tax records. So at the end of the day, we accepted that because the case was closed in 2017. And anything after 2017, people are talking about, it's not relevant. Even the stuff in between it, it's not relevant. 2012, seal the deal. 2013 to 2017 was stuff that happened, but nothing that would change the narrative. And as a result of that, whatever you're talking about after that, it's irrelevant, right? And in 2025, all of it's a joke because you're trying to rebrand something, you're trying to recharacterize something, you're trying to make and order something it wasn't back then and it isn't right now. And I'm not going to play the game. We're just going to let the facts and the truth speak for itself, because that's exactly what it's doing. And I thank God there's enough parties around from who's been through this stuff that can help keep the narrative relevant and real, what it really is. You can say whatever you want to say about what it should have, could, or what you thought it was. But if we go through a litigation, you know it ain't gonna never hold up in court. Because we didn't have any litigation. Didn't have any adjudication. Didn't have any jurisdiction. Didn't have nothing. You can recast, rebrand, re-talk about something and make it look like something it's not. Doesn't make it true. And you have no proof and nothing that you're showing from what you're saying. It's just words. It's not no adjudication. It's your narrative, not the narrative of the court or the law. So let's keep that in perspective. So anyway, thank you all for coming and listening to Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. And as always, I think it is a privilege and an opportunity, a pleasure to be able to empower the community to talk about what we need to talk about and to go for what we need to go for. I think it's a privilege. And I think you know that it's a privilege as well. So be encouraged, everybody. Walk the walk of faith and don't worry about all this other stuff, because the other stuff does not make any difference. Know the facts and the truth will set you free. And in our case, it's a foundational thing. And the foundational thing is that Thank you all so much for your questions. I will come back to try to talk. I think I got 20 something questions, and I don't like to do them too long, but I do like to feel like the people want to correspond some of this with their own situations, which we'll have a good, healthy conversation about in the future about talking about that. We need to talk about that, y'all. We need to really say what we need to say about that so people can get it and understand that the truth is the truth and nothing can change that. And if they're having issues and concerns with their own case, they want to keep the truth in a part of it and not be as emotional. It's hard for pro se people not to be emotional because they're personally attached to something that they know what they know. And sometimes when it's egregiously wrong and it's dirty, low down and dirty, it hurts. But you have to be careful and you have to be prayerful and you got to be wise. You got to be wise because people try to go after your emotions to avoid the truth. So at any rate, we're here to help, and we're working towards getting better with that. So just keep praying, keep trusting, and look forward to talking to you all soon. And I'll keep you updated as much as I can on the things that we believe that can be beneficial to the community. Thank you so much. This is Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil.